Good evening. Welcome to the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, August 21st. We'll call the meeting to order. First up, we have a presentation from Uptown Marion, Brooke Prouty. Welcome.
Thank you. And I wanted to start off by saying thank you for support of not only our organization, but of our programs to keep our historic commercial core vibrant and a point of pride within our community. I had the opportunity to sit down with some new directors from some other Main Street communities a few months ago, and when they asked us for our advice of what do you advise for this Main Street position, where should I start? We always say start with the city staff. Go get to know your city councilman, go get to know your city staff, because they are your resource and they are really, truly your support team. Tom Trehorn has invited me to be on the Central Corridor Advisory Committee. Thank you for that. Mike Barklow has included us in the selection process for the streetscape in all of those meetings. Amber was influential and so great of a leader with the banner program. Will, Randy, Dave all serve on some of our committees. Police and fire donated auction item experiences. So everyone is so great in supporting our organization. I just want to thank you for that. Also, Eat, Drink, Be Marion was a huge success this year. Everyone says it gets better every year, and we raised $11,000 this year. So
good job.
I'm really excited about that. We have a bunch of new businesses in the last few months. Bistro 319 got to eat there for lunch today, and I believe they open on Thursday, so make sure you go there. The Iowa Magic Shop is new. Arlo's is new from the VIP, the old VIP. Nettie and Hannah's Apothecary, Roots and Bloom. United Insurance moved. We have a new kickboxing studio. We have new owners for Wits End, and Sugar Me has expanded into a new location, so the district is thriving and growing, and it's really awesome to see all these new businesses this time of the year. Our Open for Business competition winner locally was Sugar Me, and she won $1,000 through the local competition. She went on to the second state level competition and won that competition. She's one of the final 5, and being final 5 means she won $9,000.
Awesome.
So,
good for her.
Or eight at that level, 1,000 here. So she's at a total of $9,000. Now she has a chance to win $20,000 at the state level. And that happens next week on Tuesday, and I handed you an invite for that. The actual competition starts at 5 o'clock in Waterloo, and then they're having a big after party with Jay Allen as the singer and entertainment for that night. It's free admission. I'd encourage you guys to come to that, and any of the public that wants to join us in celebrating. We will know that night if we won the full competition, so hopefully we're crossing our fingers that we'll be extra happy that night.
Have we had anyone advance to that level yet in the past? I know we've had a couple regional winners.
Giving Tree went to the final level, but then didn't win the full state level competition.
Okay.
We also have Fall into Fabulous Finds coming up on September 8th, and this year we're participating in the Main Street Iowa Restaurant Week, which is also an invite that you have there. A bunch of the main streets are participating in this. They've picked a week this fall that we're all getting together and encouraging people to dine in each of the main streets. So over 150 places around the state of Iowa that you can go and dine that week. We have 12 businesses participating locally that are anything from coffee shops to restaurants to bars. So I wanted to make a couple comments on some relevant topics that have come before council recently. Uptown Marion would like to support the changes to the zoning code, and the zoning code changes that have been made within the district. We have had an integral part in making comments on that, so we are fully supportive of those. And then also on the question of the brick houses where the proposed parking ramp is to go, I wanted to make a couple comments on that from the perspective of Uptown. Uptown is supportive of historic preservation within the context of economic development and economic vitality. So it's not the other way around. We're not looking to make museums. We're not looking to make perfectly historically accurate buildings with nothing in them. we are supportive of historic preservation within the context of economic development. So we have taken a look at the buildings. They do contribute to the historic character of our district, and that is a really important point I want to make. There are not as many defining characteristics or historic relevance as we would hope from some of those buildings within the district. And our perfect world, we would be able to save these buildings. They would be awesome in perfect shape, and we'd be able to have great businesses in them that thrive and contribute to that historic character. Whether that's the case or not, we're not sure. So like what the city is doing currently, they're looking into all the options. They're looking into how do we document these buildings so that if we don't have them in the future, that we can say that this is what was there and we have that history documented. We want to be able to make sure that we're making the right decision based on the professional guidance that the city is seeking right now. But then if the buildings are not feasible to stay in their location, that we would encourage the city to create a really nice incentive package for someone to be able to purchase that building and to maintain it, and to also either have a residence in it or a business in that location, perhaps somewhere else. If that is not the case, lastly, we would recommend that the building be salvaged and those historic characters be able to be used elsewhere. The Urban Pie building, the Coben-Hervey building, the brick on the front of that facade was salvaged from another historic building, so that history can live on in another location. And that's the last ditch scenario, but that is something that we would love to see happen if it did come to that. And then, as always, we would assist with any promotions or assistance that the city would need in promoting either the sale of that property or the salvage of it. Any questions on that?
Any questions?
Lastly, I wanted to update you with some projects that we have in the works with the city, but also some things that we would like to be considered or some discussions that we would like started. In the works, we're working with city staff on the streetscape property owners meeting, so getting input and feedback from them on what they'd like to see within the uptown area. The Holiday Lights project, we have lights purchased for the depot, so those will be going up this fall, and we'll do a lighting ceremony. The banners are up, and we've been getting great feedback from those. It's awesome to see how meaningful those are for people in our community, and we do have a list developed for next year for people to purchase those. We received a grant to put some planters in the crosswalk on 7th Avenue to slow down traffic, to make it safer for pedestrians, so you'll see those going in this fall. And then we're also working on cleaning up some of the parking and traffic signs within the district, so hopefully we'll have those back to you later this month. Some projects to be considered on the back of that invitation. I've made kind of a one sheet just to talk you through some of those points. These are a lot of concerns or things that have been brought to our organization from either property owners or business owners on questions they've had that maybe don't have answers, or maybe they do have answers and we just don't know the proper way to communicate those answers to them. So starting with solar panels, in many historic districts there are design standards that keep solar panels from being placed on ruining pieces of historic buildings or being visible in historic districts. So that would be something to consider. I've had a lot of questions about balconies. Can you put grills on them? Do we want grills put on them with the buildings so close to each other and the fire dangers there? Some more urgent minor infrastructure improvements. We know the streetscape project is coming. However, there was an incident in another Main Street community that resulted in a fatality due to infrastructure improvements that were deferred recently. So this is something that is on all of our Main Street minds of what liability do we have to make sure that those curbs are not falling apart, to make sure that these aren't liabilities if we're having events And it was during a Main Street event that this happened. And so what liability are we taking on of having people walk in dangerous areas that they could trip and fall and potentially be hurt through that? So there are a few of those that we would love to have improved prior to the Main Streetscape project. Food truck and retail truck policies. This is something our Economic Vitality Committee has been working on and would love to see happen in the next year or two to attract some brick and mortar, but also to get the input from other. Do you have a question?
Are we trying to encourage food trucks? I'm trying to understand what the
point is.
Yeah.
So it is to encourage brick and mortar. So not necessarily to encourage food trucks, but we do have a lack of food in the district.
Yeah.
And so getting someone to the point where they can do brick and mortar, a lot of times that does come from food trucks. But we want to be careful that we're not infringing on the brick and mortar that we already have. And so it's a very delicate balance. And I think in some areas where there isn't food, brick and mortar places right now could really benefit from a food truck policy, but it's also to protect those brick and mortar businesses from food trucks just coming in, since there isn't a policy or a license right now.
That's
to
what
do that.
it's got to be well thought out, because
Yep.
that's my concern with what they do there.
Yeah, Cedar Rapids, I'm sure already has that because they've got food trucks.
They do.
Downtown.
Right, but it is impacting brick and mortar.
Yeah,
business.
it has to.
And we have reviewed that.
But we just have to think it out more
Yep.
carefully.
I agree. Garbage and oil consolidation and expansion, and also the communication of that. It's going pretty well from what I've heard on the one block that we've done that, but some of the other blocks are interested in participating in that program. We would like to look into updating the sign ordinance to encourage more pedestrian scale signage and creative signs in the district. Also addressing murals and graffiti. We've had a lot of questions about those two aspects lately. Murals can be great in enhancing the vibrancy and really cool art in the district, but they can also ruin some of our historic properties. Think if someone wants to just go and paint over a historic brick front of a building, wow, that would really impact the historic character of that area. So that would be a major thing to consider.
We currently have nothing preventing that, or is that what you're saying? Someone could paint a brick building and there's nothing can be said about it? Or yeah?
Yeah. My understanding that is the case.
Okay.
So is your committee recommending that we establish a mural policy?
Yes. Not to inhibit creative murals, but more to protect the historic character of some of the buildings.
If you're going to put them in the correct location.
Correct location, and make sure they have the correct content. You wouldn't want something that was offensive placed on the back of the building.
Oh, yeah. That's a given.
Clarifying and communicating the design review process. Just how can we help guide development that is contextually appropriate and complementary in our district? And then lastly, is there anything else that we're missing that we can help communicate or help with any issues?
Any comments or questions on that?
It sounds to me like your group has been very active.
Busy.
So, yeah, very busy.
Very
So
busy.
thank you for all that effort.
It's been really great seeing year after year since we became a Main Street community, watching this organization just become more and more active and really in the driver's seat of what's happening down here. And it's become the vehicle that many of us had hoped for over the decades for making things happen down here. And it's been really great to watch how Uptown has benefited and our whole city has benefited. So good job for taking it to the next level, and we'll look forward to watching it become even better. So do you have a comment, Randy?
I do. I would like to say thank you as well, too. I know there's This organization takes a lot of volunteers, and we've got some great, everybody is great, greatly vested in this, so I want to as well too thank you, Brooke. There's a lot of work to this, and I personally as well too, sitting on one of the committees, feel like this has reached a whole new plateau in picking up speed as we're going into this next level, because this is some more critical components as we lay out this uptown area. So thank you, and we're continuing to look forward to some of these additional things, and I would certainly like to address these items that are on this list as well too, so that we give you something to give back to those individuals as well too. I know, just kind of going through this, my silly insurance background in me tells me that, on these balconies and things, when we have HOAs, they got to go take a look at the master policy, make sure it's in compliance with city ordinances. They may require that there would be no charcoal burning or wood, open flames. It may be limited to gas. There's a lot of different unique things that go to that. So it will require a little bit of work, but I think those are legitimate questions that we should be able to come back to and get those addressed. So, but overall, thank you very much.
Yep. On the other, there is one thing, I don't know if it's appropriate for your organization. It came up recently in terms of renaming so that there's one name for the road that runs through the heart of Marion, the Uptown District, Marion Boulevard, 1st, 7th, whatever. I don't know if that's something that would be in your purview to add to this list that we discuss as we think about the future of Marion, and perhaps council taking a look at putting one name to, so that way that it's ironed out before we get to the rest of the branding and the wayfinding and the signage. I don't know if it's appropriate here. I'm bringing it up in case that it is. It's something that I personally think that we should address at some point, even if we put a future date to that change. I think it's a discussion we should have.
I think it would be great timing with the streetscape coming through too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay, other questions or comments for Brooke? Okay, did you have anything else?
Just that I know a lot of these will take time and a lot of different conversations. A lot of people we need to loop into resolving some of these, or how do we communicate the responses to them. So look forward to working through these with you.
Thanks, Brooke.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a new agenda format here, so next is under consent agenda, we have, is it administrative services? Is that the item that's starred? Number
Yep.
12?
The first item starred is a new contract with Health Solutions for the Employee Wellbeing Program. So a little history, the city's had a well-being program for staff for about the last 4 years, and the committee has decided to switch things up, refresh it a little bit, and go with a different vendor, a local vendor, which is Health Solutions. The estimated cost for the year is approximately $25,000, which is within our annual budget for the program. If you have any questions about the particulars of the program, in addition to what was included in the packet, our HR manager is here in the back.
Did you say it's a local vendor? This is a local vendor?
Correct,
Yep.
yes.
Health Solutions is out of Cedar Rapids.
Okay. All right, questions? Okay. I guess there are no questions on that. So on to engineering. Unless there are questions about any of the other items on that section that weren't starred. Did anybody have questions on anything that wasn't starred? Okay. So moving on to engineering.
Amanda, could you change the...
We have quite a few things starred here. Just about everything on the engineering section.
We'll work through
We'll
it
talk
pretty quick.
fast.
Yep.
All but one item.
Pretty repetitive, though.
Yeah.
All right, item number 2, unless there's any questions about the payments, we'll go right to number 2. Number 2 is resolution accepting Prairie Hill 16th edition of the City of Marion. In your council packet, you'll notice that the developer has paid the 29th Avenue access fees in total, including interest. So we'll work with Public Service and get those barricades taken down. We received bonds today, And later you'll see under the community development, the final plat is also coming through, so.
Good, good result.
So this is just a location of what we're talking about. It's south of 29th, west of Highway 13.
Right.
E3 is acceptance of the 2018 sanitary sewer slip lining project. So we originally awarded this contract back on 3/8/18. The original contract was $103,199.75. Because the numbers came in so much under our estimate, we had them do additional locations at those unit prices, which added $43,450 to that contract that was approved by council on 7/5/18. They have now completed all locations, and so the contract is complete and we're ready to accept that project. E4 and 5 are the same property, so this is 1195 6th Avenue. And for all these properties, just to give you a little background, so a lot of these properties we bought as part of the Central Corridor or Albernette Road, other projects that we needed, and we still have these on the books. Some of these properties no longer have power to them, and so the sump pumps might be failing, so their properties were not good at property management because we don't have a property management person. So these, we quoted them all as property relocation or disposals. So if somebody wanted to give us a quote for $5 and take the property and move it to another location, they could have done that. It just so happens that for all of these, one person was the low bid on all of them, and he's planning on demoing them. In addition to that, fire and police also get first crack at them. So like the heat team will go in and practice doing their SWAT stuff in there. Fire will possibly look at the 880 2nd Street project property to do burning depending on the wind direction. And so we try and utilize those as much as possible before we completely dispose of them. So that you guys are aware.
How do we notice the area so that if a neighbor sees a SWAT person going in and we're just doing a drill, what's our procedure for that?
So the police department does signage. I know a couple of them are out here, and so they're near the school, and so they actually notify the school too, so they don't worry about, why are all these vehicles out there, but.
Thanks.
So we received 6 bids on 1195 6th Avenue, so you can see they vary from $13,400 up to $57,632. So we're recommending the low bid of Tabi Excavating. So E4 is accepting the bids, and E5, this contractor is ready to go, and he's going to start on a couple of them on Monday, if possible. And so we're going to go ahead and put the contracts through at the same time. For normal project, we would just do the award, and then at the next council meeting, we would do the contract. Here, they're small projects, and he's already signed the contracts. So, any questions on E4 and E5? All right. For E6 and E7, again, we received 6 bids ranging from $13,185 to $52,391. Again, Tabi Excavating was the low bid. He's also the one that did the 2 demos on the east side of Tower Terrace and Winslow Road 2 years ago. So we've dealt with him before. So any questions on those? E8 and E9, this is for 1480 5th Avenue. This one received 5 bids. They range from $10,140 to $15,975. And again, it's Tabi Excavating as the low bid. E10 and E11 is for 573 14th Street. The bids range from $22,415 to $40,900. Again, Tabi Excavation is the low bid.
Are they local?
I don't remember where he's located at.
Springville? Bobby?
I don't have that with me, but
Yeah. I think they're out of Springville. Is that right?
E12 and E13 is for 880 2nd Street. So that one ranged from $10,200 to $26,405. Again, Tabi Excavating was the low bid on that one. All right, E14. This is a motion to receive, file, discuss, and refer to TAC a request regarding speed traffic flow crosswalks along 31st Street, 35th Street, Sunburst Avenue, and Cardinal Drive from Chris Benish. We will then have a TAC report that comes back to council with a recommendation, and then you guys will act on that recommendation. So this is just receiving, filing, and referring to TAC. If there's anything you guys want to discuss before we've done the TAC report, we can. Otherwise, we can wait till we give you guys the report back. Okay. E15, the last council meeting during the citizen comment period, we had an individual come in, Joseph Jess, requesting that we look at the use of golf carts within the city limits. So this is referring that to TAC to evaluate that request. So this is just referring that motion to TAC to do that, just making sure that's something that council wants staff to spend time on or not spend time on. So you could vote this down if you don't want us to do research, see what other municipalities are doing, or you can tell us to move forward and see what others are doing and come back with a staff report.
So I have a question, and I know you know, I'm asking you to predict the future a little bit here, but how much time would you guys spend on an issue like this if we decide to refer it to you?
I can tell you that we've already discussed it at a supervisory meeting, and I don't know if there's any staff that's in favor of it. There's a lot of legal things that can occur by allowing the golf carts on city streets. We're not a town of 10,000 people. We have a lot of cars that are on our streets. We do have an ordinance right now that allows, if you have a disability, okay. If you have a disability, you can get a waiver. It has to be signed off by the city manager, and I believe Lon said there was 3 that he recalls in his tenure that he's approved. They have to stay on local streets. They're not allowed to go on major minor arterials. They can cross them, but they can't drive on them. One thing to keep in mind is on our trail network, any of our projects that are federally funded through the MPO, you cannot have motorized vehicles on them. That's part of the MPO request. And so you can have maintenance vehicles on them, but so that would be one issue. If you allowed golf carts, we would have to somehow sign that on this particular trail you cannot have a golf cart. We also have issues with Parks Department because they already have rules in the parks on whether you can use motorized vehicles in parks. And so it's going to hit a lot of departments. So it's not going to be a simple thing. We're going to have to get legal involved. We're going to have to look and see what other municipalities do. If Cedar Rapids does something, then Hiawatha, do we meet somewhere in the middle? So it's not going to be short. I don't know what the hours are going to be, but it's not going to be a short amount.
Okay.
If you recall our RV ordinance that came in here that we've done twice now, I would imagine you're going to have a fury of people that are pro and against. So I don't really want to stir the pot unless you guys want to.
I mean, number one, I'm not in favor of it at all. I mean, I go to church in Springville. I see a couple driving around there, but that's a town of 1,100. And so you look at the traffic we have here, you look at the speed that a golf cart can maintain, and I go, to me, it's just way too many problems, and I don't see much of a benefit to have those in
What's the attraction
our city.
to it,
So
to wanting to?
I don't know. The individual just came in, and that was his request during the council discussion time, was he would just like us to look at the ordinance and allow golf carts throughout the city.
And this is our current ordinance here?
Only one that I've signed since I've been here was for St. Joe Fun Days. They wanted to be able to transport people from auxiliary parking lots to the facility. That's the only one I've signed for since I've been here. And from other communities that I've seen, they'll trick them out, dress them up, and they'll get them running pretty quick, and then they'll use them as a primary mode of transportation. And then when they get hit by another car, it's not pretty.
you can get golf carts.
Oh,
There were a number of years ago where our federal government paid, I think it was almost up to 50% for certain golf carts that were really souped up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those were not just normal golf carts. Those things can maintain a really good speed. So they could probably, speed-wise, do fine in the city, but the majority of the golf carts are not designed
Correct.
to do that. And so to me, they're an impediment and much more of a problem. And especially if you have a situation like that on that type of golf cart, which is what you're going to do, I mean, you're going to have people right in the back end, not going to have seatbelts on those things. Kids and or adults can fall off pretty readily, pretty easily. So to me, you know,
I'm with you, Councilman.
many more
I
problems
would not
than-
be in support of them.
yeah, I don't see any benefit whatsoever. I don't know how everybody else feels. I'm gonna say no whenever it comes up anyway.
Actually, if they have a windshield wipers, headlights, directional signals, and brake lights, you can license them, because we have one in the state of Iowa. And you can drive them on any street, and they're not particularly souped up. You know, I had a gas one that I took to the racers out at Hawkeye Downs, and they made it run about 40 mile an hour. But
Yeah.
they can be sped up, but you can license them, you know, if people want to go that far in the state of Iowa. And a lot of them Steve's talking about where the federal government paid 50%, that was under an electric car thing.
That's right.
And they considered them an electric car. And they sold a lot of them nationwide that were licensed for road use.
I mean, you see them all the time in gated communities down south. Very, very prominent, but those gated communities are designed for it. And being a gated community, you limit where they're at, and everybody's used to them and accustomed to them. Here, I just don't think that's the case.
We don't let you use your
Okay.
car on the golf course, do they?
So, you're looking for a consensus or something on whether or not you should look into it?
It's only
Yeah,
right.
so what we can do is I can move this to the regular section of the council meeting for Thursday, and you guys can vote on it. Basically, if you refer it to TAC, we're going to do a staff report. We're going to spend staff time on it. If you deny it, then we won't spend staff time, and I will just send Joseph Jess a letter that says that council feels this isn't a value-added benefit. So I can move it to that portion of the meeting, and you guys can vote on it if you want.
Okay.
E16, we had a request from Buddy Udell at 335 West 34th Avenue to add stop signs at the intersection of West 34th Avenue and Hawthorne Street. We did evaluate this intersection and found that they would be warranted to add them so that this becomes from a two-way stop to a four-way stop right next to Gill Park there. It's the red dot that's on the screen. So that is TAC's recommendation to go ahead and add 2 more stop signs to make that a four-way stop. So it would stop east-west traffic. Right now, only north-south traffic has to stop.
Okay, are you ready to move on?
Yeah, unless there's questions.
Nope, I'm just gonna turn over the gavel to Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, E17, I didn't give you all of the reports just because your packets are big enough, but there is a Terracon report that's 53 pages. There's a Garver, which is an electronic evaluation of the lighting system out there, which is 56 pages that I did not include in your council packet, plus the actual Anderson-Bogart report that was kind of the summary of all that data. So basically there were 4 main cross-sections that were in the evaluation, and the existing runway condition was a very large concern because if we just widened the existing runway and left this existing runway how it was, there was concerns that would degrade even more. And obviously when you land a plane, you need all 3 tires to have a good solid foundation. If that center falls apart, there's no point in improving the rest of the runway. Another big thing was before we did not have drain tile in any of the cross sections, and because of the water table and the frost condition out there, drain tile was added to all the cross sections. So all we're doing is motion to receive, file, and discuss the engineer's report. So I didn't know if there was anything in that particular report that you guys wanted to talk about, or if you wanted to go ahead and go to the next item and discuss the recommendation that came out of this report and the discussion from the airport committee.
Was there a map in that report at all? that
There
would
wasn't.
show-
Not in the one we got.
There's not a map because all you're doing is we're widening the existing runway that's out there. This isn't lengthening at all. All this is doing is widening it.
Well, towards the highway, but, all right,
It's widening both sides of it.
yeah.
Yep.
So is that gonna be an equal amount on each side? So what's there is just gonna become the center?
Yep.
And then just expand, feather it out?
Yep.
cool down lane.
Number 18?
All right, so number 18 of the 4 cross sections, then they basically looked at 2 HMA ones and 2 PCC options. Basically, they looked at the future fleet mix and the existing fleet mix. So the future fleet mix, they looked at the Eastern Iowa Airport down in Iowa City and what that actually has coming into it versus the existing fleet that we have today. And you can see there's not a big difference between the HMA options or the PCC options between the future and the existing. So what we propose is going with the future fleet. If we're going to build it, let's do it right so that we can have those planes that we're planning on land at the airport. The only issue will be in the future when we lengthen the runway. You know, we might be building it thick enough to have that airplane land, but it's not long enough yet. But we got to start somewhere. So at least having it the right thickness so that it can handle that pressure when the airplane lands. So the airport committee recommended that we do the future fleet mix on kind of an alternate bid. And so what we can do is we can either do A plus B bidding or make equivalent structural sections. So we did the similar thing out at Lau Park where we made the HMA and the PCC equivalently structurally. And that way, you know, for example, if you only pick HMA, you're going to have one bidder. It's going to be LL Pelling. And this way it adds more competition to that. With this, then, there's also the discussion of lights. They did have 4 options on the lights, but they didn't feel they had enough time and research to pick an option. The cheapest option was actually solar panel lights, where each individual ground light had its own solar panel, and they felt that in the event that you need the lights out there at the airport and you are dependent on them, that's when they wouldn't have power if the battery was to fail. So they didn't really feel too comfortable with the solar-powered lights, and so they wanted to get some more research on the batteries and stuff like that to see how that all worked. But there's 4 different options, and so that range is somewhere between $296, $820, and $374, $040 that they'll come with another recommendation at another meeting, but knowing that number's out there. So originally when we did the funding application, the total project cost was estimated to be $499,533. The local share would be 15%, $74,933, with the requested state share of $424,620. The preliminary total cost, assuming we go with the PCC option, future fleet, and the most expensive lighting option, just to throw a number out there, makes it so we have a funding gap of $2.2 million. With that, we're going into the CIP to establish what projects are priorities. And so basically keeping that in mind whilst we're prioritizing projects, that if we want to do this right and not just put a Band-Aid out there, that this is what we need to actually do out there.
Is the requested state share of 85% a guarantee? Because it says request, but is it something we could count on for that number?
We actually have that amount already solidified.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just, we have to come up with the remaining. So this was the funding application that we requested, and that's actually what we got. It's just obviously that there's still a shortfall. And that is contingent on some things like we're doing the zoning for the ALP to make sure that the land uses are protected, and that has to be in effect as well before they'll distribute this money. But we can be doing those at the same time. The community development group can be working on the zoning while we're working on the construction plan, so that we can keep things moving instead of waiting for one to get done and then starting the other.
So was this included in our initial list of projects in the CIP that we looked at?
I know that in the proposed projects, I did put in the CIP some proposed money based
Okay.
on the outlay of the ALP that was put together.
All right.
I don't remember where it was ranked in the CIP. I know you guys looked at 60s and above, but even with that, we'll have to see when we get to that portion of it.
And that's next month, right? I think we're meeting.
17th.
Yeah.
We'll meet on it.
Okay.
So it's just something to keep in your mind as you're ranking projects, that this one's out there.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, community development. Is there anything before item number, oh no, there's nothing. New agenda format, pardon me. So then moving on to nothing of the city manager's office. So the consent agenda with the mayor's abstention. The only thing in here that I see is at G. Amanda, is that? who
Yep,
you speak
so
to?
this is a letter of support for a brownfield tax credit application, and that's the redevelopment of the 1204 site. It's an underutilized property with the collapse of the structure that happened back in 2015. Previously, the site was used as a dry cleaner and also an auto body shop, so there were unknown remediations done before the foreclosure. And so the city, or Lon did write a letter of support for this project. The developer did come in last month to present to council. We received and filed their request for TIF assistance and are currently working on a memorandum of understanding. What's being proposed is the original plan that was presented back in 2014, which would be a 3-story building, the first floor being commercial and the second and third floor being residential units.
I vaguely remember that plan because it's been a while, but I thought that there were some issues with like an elevator or some kind of transport in there. Do you remember anything to that effect? Like I just thought there were some questions about the architecture of that building. So for you to say we're going to put that same one forward, I guess if we have access or can see that plan at some point, I'd be curious.
Actually, when that plan came up, I never saw the first plan. I don't recall that because I wasn't on the city council. I think, Paul, you made the comment that the architecture was actually changed and improved.
Right.
And would look better in the uptown area than the previous one.
That was my feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a better looking building. I thought that the people who owned that before had applied for that grant. Is that?
They may have. There were no tax credits awarded for that site that I'm aware of.
Yeah, they may have applied. I don't recall right offhand. I don't recall if they applied for the tax credit program on that site. I can't imagine that they did not.
Yeah, they applied for everything else.
Yeah. The elevator issue, I think, was when we were going between a single story and a 2-story. There were some improvements done, and there was a lack of some building information. Like they may have poured some footings without knowledge, and then they wanted to change some things. And I think Hobart has done some due diligence on that and understands there's issues. I don't know if that was the specific comment, but
Yeah,
I
and
remember
I don't even remember.
that being. Gary may know a little bit too.
There is an elevator in the proposed plans that have been submitted so far that were received along with the application for TIF assistance. So.
Yeah. It's the same plan as the original for the most part, but
it is pretty much the original plan. I mean, there's been like tons of them. So the original plan did not call for, or it called for an elevator, and then they switched it to a 2-story, and then they went back to a 3-story. Originally, they were going to do like a chairlift on the stairs when they were going to go back to the 2-story. And then when they converted us last time to the 3rd story, they went back to the elevator, which brings in a lot of new issues with the elevator pit and stuff that's not in there right now. So that was what that did. The plan that I think they're submitting, I have not seen plans yet, but what I've been told what they're submitting is going to be back to the 3-story. They're going to change the number of apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Going to have a rooftop, and the elevator and stuff is all going back in there. I've been told they're changing the brick style so it looks more like the downtown. Or the uptown. I don't really know for sure. Like I said, I have not seen plans. So, but they've changed the plans many times. And as I recall, and I'm not 100% sure, but as I recall, they've applied for some TIF assistance, but then they nothing was ever paid because they never got far enough to do anything. So.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
Did anybody else get any documentation of this? It says motion approving a letter. Was there a letter included?
Yep, the letter was included in the council packets.
Okay, I don't have it in my packet.
You what?
Did anybody else get it?
Not sure I remember that one.
I'll email it out to you. It should have gone out in the email.
Okay. And fortunately, I don't get all the emails, so I'm relying on these to be printed, so hopefully they're in here. I would like a copy of it, though. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to the regular agenda. I will relinquish the gavel to the mayor.
Okay. Still with engineering.
Yep. All right, so for those of you not aware, the Indian Creek Watershed Management was established. Here's the 2010 aerial photography, basically showing how much impact the watershed actually has. At one point, they had some granting that paid for a position, and then that position, the grant expired. So you guys should have a letter in your council packets. I understand that Jennifer is here tonight if you guys would rather hear the presentation tonight, but we were originally planning on that presentation being on Thursday. I'll let you guys make that call.
Well, we're moving along pretty well. If she wants to, how long is the presentation? I think let's do it. Yeah, since you're here, why make you come back?
Voted on something because I didn't send it to
There's nothing to vote on,
you.
right?
Is that possible, or?
We'll be approving a
Is it
payment
this issue right here?
to.
Oh,
Hi.
our share, our share, yeah,
I just,
that's right.
although it's in kind, it's not mine.
No, I want money now.
Oh,
Did you read it?
I thought, yeah, I did, which is okay. I have
Well,
a
he's
question
getting
about
that set up, and not to waste your time. I'm Jennifer Fensel. I'm the Environmental Services Director with East Central Iowa Council of Governments, and I have been working.
Would you try to get closer to the mic? Because this meeting is recorded, so, yeah, thank you.
Gotcha. Jennifer Fensel, Environmental Services Director, East Central Iowa Council of Governments. We have been working with the Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority since it was formed in 2012. It should be oh boy. Just a second.
Yeah, Kara.
I apologize, but the
Yes.
presentation is listed on the agenda for Thursday.
Oh, okay.
And so we really need to have, I was not even thinking until I looked at this, we really need to have this on the date that it's
Sure.
listed on the agenda.
That's why you're here, so thank you.
Let's keep it us
Sorry.
honest. That's fine.
We'll have to see you again on
Should we
Thursday.
just save it there, so it's there? We'll just save it there. We'll be ahead of the game.
Okay.
I'll see you Thursday.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I
But I
thought
am
so.
here if you have any questions.
All right, thank you.
Can't ask any questions. Can we?
So, where does it say that it was on for Thursday?
Right here.
Oh, presentation on Thursday, okay. Yes.
You can discuss it because it is listed that you can discuss,
I just didn't wait.
but you can't actually do the presentation, so it might make more sense to
Just
do
wait.
any discussion at the
Okay.
same time as the
Yep.
presentation.
No problem. Thank you. Sorry about the inconvenience. Yep.
Okay, so on Thursday, we'll have the presentation from Jennifer. Basically, with that letter, they're requesting that the city, instead of having an in-kind contribution, to actually have a cash payment. And so that's what item 2 is then approving, is the $17,433, and we'll get more in depth on that on Thursday.
Okay, and is that, where would that 17,000 come from?
We can look at different accounts, but I would assume it would come out of the stormwater fund. But I have not looked into that because I was going to prepare for that for Thursday.
Okay, all right, we can talk about that then.
I was going to ask, and so I'll just plant the seed for Thursday if you don't know, what the in-kind, in the past, it says that in-kind had been given over the years. I'm just wondering if that
It was Steve Cooper's time.
So it was just staff time?
Yes.
Nothing, okay.
Okay. Community development, Mr. Tom. Oh, we have Kesha.
Good evening.
So there is no presentation. I think Mayor and Renee, you weren't here last time. I gave a presentation, updated the council on the Safe Routes to School grant. And so as we had noted, Wellmark said, congratulations, you've got this grant, now go find $48,000. And so try we did. And this was a collaborative effort of Lynn County Public Health, Marion staff, the school. So what we have gotten funding for, and so like I said, there's this $48,800 and some odd dollars of funding that we were trying to use to get this Wellmark grant. And so what we're able to confirm was $10,000 from the Marion Independent School Board and $10,000 from Delta Dental. And last week, end of the week before, we found out the Lynn County Board of Supervisors, through their economic development funds, gave us an additional $10,000. And so what we have is we have another $30,000 that the city has committed towards this. And so F1 is the approving the grant agreement with the Wellmark Foundation. This basically commits us with them for the Safe Routes to School Trail. And then our commitment in this would be the $18,000. That's the portion that has yet to be made up. We still have some asks out there that were just either out of their funding cycle. That's not to say that we won't follow up with those and hopefully still get those, or that we just haven't heard back yet. It's the right time. It's just this process that's due through Wellmark is a little bit quicker than the feedback time on some of the grants. And so the $18,843 is what I'm asking the council or the city to commit into the Safe Routes to School Trail. And that's not to say that these funds couldn't be leveraged to get additional funding as well. And you'll be hearing about that in the next couple months, hopefully. Any questions of staff?
I have one. So at what point, so basically if we approve this, we're committing that the city would pony up this if it doesn't come in from any other sources, right?
Right.
And so what's the date that we would have to, how much longer do you have to hear from other people that the asks are out
And this
for?
is, I would say technically I'm asking the council to commit to this. If the additional funds come in, we'd probably add that on to getting more of the trail done. Say we went for a different type of trail grant that we could use these funds as a match for. We just extend the trail as far as we could with those funds.
Where does this money come from? I mean, it's not budgeted, right?
Correct. And with staff, we've been talking about, are there TIF funds available? I think that's going to be some questions I pondered to, I think, Tom, and I don't know if we pondered those to Lon as well, as far as questioning looking into TIF funds. There are some low to moderate income requirements for TIF funds, depending on how those are spent. We were going to have the TIF attorneys look into that. I don't know, Tom, did you hear back?
Will we know by Thursday before we vote?
We'll be able to
Source of
report
the
back
funding?
on if there's a source of funds. I think that's, yep.
I
don't know if it'll be TIF, but we can figure out where there's money available for that.
Okay. I think we kind of need to know that.
Yep.
I mean, I like the leverage. I mean, you're asking the city basically to pay, come up with 19% of the project.
Yeah.
So to me, that 4-to-1 leverage is certainly worth
absolutely.
worth looking very, very hard at and very seriously. So that, anytime you got that kind of leverage, those usually are pretty successful projects. So a lot of hard work put into it.
And there's buy-in from other, like I said, the school board as well.
Right.
This wasn't part of their typical budget cycle,
Right.
as well. So.
Okay. Other questions on that one?
Thank you.
Thanks, Kesha. Number 2.
The next item is on Thursday. There'll be a public hearing regarding the vacation of a alleyway between what was Another Road Brewing and Councilman Draper's building. Unfortunately, we're going to have to open and close the public hearing and republish the notice so that we actually do a vacation prior to disposition. Just so the council's aware, we'll have to open and close it, and we'll have to republish because the vacation notice did not get published correctly.
So we won't actually have, or will we actually have the public hearing? Or
We're required to hold the public hearing on the disposition because it was published in the notice, but we didn't vacate the property to dispose of it. So
we will take comments and all of that from people if they're here.
We will, if people come to talk about it. I would propose that at the beginning of that public hearing to notify those that may be in attendance that we will be republishing the notice, and there'll be another public hearing regarding it probably at the next.
That was
meeting.
my question.
Yep.
This won't be the only time.
This will
people
not
have
be
a
the
chance
only
to
time.
comment.
Correct.
There'll be another opportunity.
So we're working out how we do the publications on notices. As you guys are aware, we've had to do this a couple different times on different vacations. We're working through a process. The alley vacations, which you've probably heard me talk to, are time-consuming, difficult, and they require a lot of coordination between the planning department, legal staff, and also all the public utilities that we deal with to ensure that appropriate easements are in place to proceed with. So we used to handle them internally in the department, in the planning department, for years. We just did them. Probably when we were smaller, it did not matter as much and was not looked at as diligently as items are now. And I think legal probably provide that, in a title opinion for, let's say, Paul's property, if he sold it all, they go back and do a lot of title work on these, and I think there were gaps when we were doing it internally. We weren't attorneys. We probably were missing steps and processes. So we've turned it over to legal, and there's still some coordination on that end that we're working through. So we are trying to get a smoother process moving forward with the vacations and sales and legal descriptions and the notices, but this is just another one that's kind of slipped up. So if you recall, we did limit the titles down. If you recall, we were doing the legal description in the resolution, and you guys did not like to read those, so that's a change that's been made as well. So anyway, we'll need to open and close that and then republish and do it all at the next meeting. So apologize for that.
I've been trying for 6 years. What's another 30 days?
There you go. There you go. Ground keeps increasing in value, Paul. Actually, you just showed me that it's going down, so maybe it was
We're going to have a discussion about that.
I thought there might be one.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have the public hearing and the ordinances related to the zoning codes. Number 4, 5, or 4, 6, and 8 are the sections that we've discussed in the past. I didn't know if there were, it's about 60-some pages, I think, if not more, of text and notes and charts. And I don't think you really want me to walk through those, but if you had comments or questions as you read through those, I'd certainly entertain them. And I would also point out that with the adoption of these, they have no relevance to anything that's zoned currently. So they're on the books. They're regulating uses, the districts, at least, the district regs. But we have no zoning districts that we're assigning at this point. The time that the district regs would come into play is when we actually rezoned a piece of property to the community business or the regional business district. The definitions definitely has some would apply, because we're taking the current definition list, removing it, making changes, and placing it back in. I would say most of the changes, however, are specifically related to the new districts that we're establishing, and I hope you've had time to read through some of the uses highlighted in those districts. And then, of course, the nonconformity section as well would apply to any existing development. So,
I think for other people's information, I mean, I read through the 3F8-9 piece talking about the different districts that you can have. And again, as I looked at that, it was a long, long time ago that I was on P&Z. So a lot of things could have changed. But when I looked at that, I had to ask the question, and you may have mentioned this in one of the other meetings, and it went over my head until I looked at this in more detail. But we've got R1, and then we have SR1, and then we have TR1, and so on for 2, 3, 4. So before I came in here, I was talking to Dave Hockett, and so I had to ask him the question. I said, what's the difference between those three? And so I think that explanation then gave me a little more familiarity with how to look at this or read it. And I don't know if everybody else has that same misunderstanding I did, but if people look at that, I wasn't clear on that until he explained it to me.
So in the older areas of the community, the lots are smaller, and the setbacks are different. And now, if you go into a traditional neighborhood, what I'll call a traditional neighborhood, any block north of Uptown, you want to build a house, you have a required 25-foot setback and 7-foot side yards. And the style of that neighborhood may have been completely different. Most of the houses were set up closer, and they're 5,000 square foot lots, and if someone comes in and wants to combine a bunch of lots, you want to make sure they're kind of consistent with everybody can drive through your neighborhood and say that just doesn't fit, and sometimes that's related to the zoning. So, yeah.
But I mean, in the future, we will no longer have R1. It's either going to be
absolutely.
Yeah, it's either going to be R1's going to be gone. It's either going to be SR1 or TR1.
Yep,
and that's where I was confused. I said,
sure.
You got three there. I said, tell me what the difference was. And so as he explained it, he said R1's going to go away, and then you got either the SR1 or TR1, and he explained it with the lot size or the older part of town versus the newer parts of town with different lot sizes. So.
And so essentially the TR is traditional residential, and the SR would be suburban residential. And so we're really, everything about all the neighborhoods after about the 1970s would be the SRs, and their lot sizes were pretty much standard. The McGowan additions, all like 400 of them, were 60 by 100 foot lots. And so,
Tom, that area that we're approving out north, that's going to be 60-foot lots. Would that same rules apply that apply then currently 25-foot setback?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of it has to do with the way that we're doing the rewrite of the zoning ordinances. We're going to apply the code, and then we're going to go back. We're going to go into the neighborhoods and rezone sections so that we're not, have the whole community here when we rezone and have a public hearing on the adoption of a zoning ordinance for all of this. So the concept is we'll develop the ordinance. We can go in and maybe have 2 neighborhood meetings, address the issues, tweak some things, and then when we come to the council, we'll probably know the issues, be able to highlight them or take action to mitigate those. So we can't really rewrite the R1 district standards, because when we do that, we would be rewriting the district standards for all the property that's currently zoned R1, so we created a different typology within the code. I do think it helps, too, because when you look at traditional residential areas, they're just different than after suburbia hit, and so it provides that opportunity to kind of separate those uses. One of the things you'll notice is that when we did our residential districts, I'd have to look at it specifically, but we've kind of the square footage lots, and we included an additional single-family district in the SR districts, so that you don't. And I think I explained this, like the out north of 29th Avenue, when we had the whole 80 acres, except for a couple areas, was R2. Well, their lot sizes varied from 60-foot to 85-foot lots, 120 feet deep to 150 feet deep. Well, the neighborhood was very concerned east of it because their lots were so big and they wanted to make sure that they were buffered. Well, if it's zoned R2, they can make those lots as small as they want as long as they meet that R2 standard when they final plat. And once the zoning's in place, they could come in and replat the whole thing, as you found with the Morris development when they did their project Gemstones out by Brookside Drive. So we'll be able to more specifically identify zoning districts, and when property rezoned and we have a plat, we might be able to address that buffering a lot easier within the zoning. I don't know if all that made sense, but we were trying to be able to do some protective uses of zoning. Traditionally in Marion, as the map shows, if you develop single-family residential, regardless of the lot size, it's just R2. Well, the minimum lot size in an R2 district is 6,000 square feet, 60 by 100-foot lot. So you think about the neighborhoods that we have in town that are zoned R2 that maybe have 85 by 150-foot lots. And if someone came in, let's say a development didn't go well and bought it and then just replatted it, it would be a substantial change to that neighborhood, but zoning wouldn't protect anyone. So that's kind of what we're trying to do.
So on the heels of that, related, I don't know, this doesn't have a page number, but it's this package with 1F4. I just had a question about a statement in here. It was talking about the rezoning, and I'm sorry, I wish I had a page number to give you. It's, yeah, so it's on the back side of the page that has this map with the different zoning on Tower Terrace, the different proposed. And it talks about how for the residential zoning districts, everything's compatible, but then it says the proposed commercial zoning to the south will potentially create conflicts and will have to be mitigated through design on the commercial side of the rezoning request. I just want to make sure we've got all of those design standards in place before this situation could creep up so that it's not so subjective. Are those ironed out?
What I have not included in the district regs are design standards. We haven't done those yet. We do want to do those and include them, but with the district regs, we wanted to kind of keep that kind of clean, not get caught up into the design stuff when we're talking about just strictly land use. But there will be we're actually working on it as it relates to the Central Corridor, the neighborhood in Indian Creek, and as you've seen on the Tower Terrace Road and the zoning and even this zoning, we were hoping to have the districts in place so that when the Y project and the Gill property was rezoned, that we would be zoning it to the new districts. And their time frames and our time frame, they need to close on a certain date, and it's just not working out. Now, I do suspect that we'll be going in and rezoning that area consistent with the new standards soon. So there are protections in place within that proposed rezoning that do have some architectural standards in it. So.
And then my other quick question, and I think I know the answer, I just want to make sure, where it talks about a paragraph under A1, rural restricted to C3, in the description it says, uses certain wholesale and warehouse uses and some limited industrial activities. Fireworks sales wouldn't be permitted in that area, correct? Like it's because if we were to move fireworks sales to industrial only, none of that would be considered industrial. That's just
correct.
An adjective in here, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Just absolutely. Yeah, we want, and I think we're going to have a specific ordinance on that fireworks, just so that it's crystal clear.
Okay. That's all I saw that.
No, that's absolutely.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Number 10 is the final plat for Prairie Hills 16th edition. This is the property I think Mike was referencing out on 29th Avenue where the barricades have been placed, and that final plat will be moving forward. And we should be good to go. Everything's in place for that. The fees have been paid. Number 11 is the final plat for the 13151 second edition. So this is out by DePaco. I think the council has the information regarding that, and the plats all in order. and similar to the land her plat and memorandum. So we're moving forward on those items.
Hey, Tom, on number 11, are they changing anything compared to what we have been made aware of in the past?
No, it's consistent with the preliminary plat.
Okay,
Yep. So they're just final platting what is consistent with the preliminary.
all right.
Yep. And then the final item, number 13, is the partial deferral of installation of the sidewalk. We just talked about this at the last meeting. I think the council had some questions on why doing a partial in that, and so, and then the company asked that that be deferred until, I guess, tabled until Thursday. So I don't know if there's any follow-up questions on that from the council, but I thought we had explained that. So there's a partial deferral because of the land topography on the south side of that roadway.
But I thought, bless you, I thought I saw for Thursday that the resolution actually is recommending a denial, right, of their request, and then to move forward with partial, aside from the topography issues?
Correct, because they requested a full deferral.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So and we're recommending a partial. So. Any questions on those items?
Is that it for Tom?
Mhm.
All right. I think we're down to the library presentation. So. Hi, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for welcoming us today. My name is Madeline Jarvis, and I'm the Adult and Information Services Coordinator at the Marion Public Library.
And I'm Olivia Stoner. I am the Children's Services Coordinator at the Marion Library as well.
Olivia and I serve on the library's leadership team, and we're excited to share some insights with the library's new strategic plan. This guiding document is going to help our staff steer our library's future for the next 3 years. So we started our process for our strategic plan this past October as the leadership team took a small retreat to take a look at what our agency's strengths and goals are, as well as the local resources and national trends that can help our future. The library leadership team are active members of the Marion community, as well as engaged participants in professional organizations. So this was a great opportunity to kind of mirror this cozy hometown feel of the library that our Marion community really knows and loves, as well as kind of look at what we can do with our flexibility, our curiosity as we are engaged to move forward. From them, we brought it to the entire staff to do a charrette brainstorming session and continued to brainstorm throughout our departments. At that point, through the guidance and support of the Board of Trustees, we have started to implement a lot of our goals, which are really exciting and maybe a little ambitious, as Olivia will mention.
All right, so I was told that you all received the strategic plan, so I hope you all have looked it over, but I'm just going to remind you what our vision and mission and values were. So our vision is we will provide an unparalleled patron experience. We facilitate access to the resources our patrons want when they want them. We are where our community chooses to gather and connect, and we are the friendliest public library in the world. So that's a little aspirational, but that's what we hope to be. So our mission is we enhance lives through radical hospitality, service curation, and shared joy in the Marion community. And then our values are hospitality, stewardship, and community focus. And we have some bullets under there that kind of highlight what those mean to us. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? Okay. So we just thought we would kind of highlight some of the growth that's happening and then the components of our strategic plan. So Madeline will highlight some components.
Sure. So when we're looking at how do we measure something like hospitality, joy, and community focus, we broke it into 3 main components: patron-driven services, staff development and excellence, as well as flexibility and risk-taking. As we're looking at our patron-driven services, this is not only what we choose to engage with, but also which specific materials. Olivia and I both select materials for our library, so this is more than just shopping. This is taking a look at what does our community need, what is our community asking for. How can these resources both be a mirror into what our community is experiencing, as well as a window to what others are experiencing. We're looking at some electronic service models through patron-driven acquisition, where the user themselves are selecting what is being purchased, as long as it meets our strict collection development policy. Additionally, users can log on and request specific materials straight from the comfort of their own home. If they aren't able to come into the library, to just simply click a button, and then one of the selectors will be in touch with them. Throughout patron-driven services, this is also meeting our patrons where they are. Whether you're enjoying a morning cup of coffee at Hy-Vee or waiting with a few littles in the WIC clinic, there is a library staff member there once a month to greet these valuable members of our community, as well as see what can we do to improve. We are the community's library, and this means something different for each patron. As we're looking at staff development and excellence, Marion is kind of that perfect size community where we are small enough to really see the impact that we're making, but we're big enough to have the flexibility and try some really creative, engaging things. Coming up for the 2018 Iowa Library Association Conference, the City of Marion is actually sending more staff than any other agency in the state, thanks in part to Chief Deb as well for stepping in and being one of our keynote pre-session speakers as we talk about bed bugs and biohazards throughout the state and what can we do. So we're really tapping our city to take a look at how can we really make sure that everybody is represented. This is also reflected as the national level too. Our teen services staff recently put together a webinar for the Nebraska Library Commons to help educate teen educators across the country. We had the Marion Public Library represented at the American Library Association Conference this June. Olivia shared her research at the Kids First Conference as well about early literacy and engaging babies in that valuable first few years and months as well. And we do have the space to be flexible and take risks. At the library, we more often say, why not, as opposed to no. So being able to work together as a team, work with the Metro Library Network, and engage with librarians across the country to figure out how can we best serve and make the biggest impact for our valuable community. And we launched this plan in June, as I mentioned, and we've already seen just a skyrocket of our partnerships and programs, as Olivia will mention.
Yeah, so I'm just going to highlight a few of the things that we've been working on. So the Encore Cafe started, when did it start? May?
In May.
Yes, so May is when it started. It has been growing. I was at Info today answering calls, and I signed several seniors up for the meals. It's super exciting. They just celebrated the library's birthday with Shucks from the Colonels came and served cake.
It was Hy-Vee Chinese Day. No corn was served. Don't worry.
No cannibalism. And yeah, it's just been a really great community event. It's not just for seniors. Other ages have come as well. And we've had feedback from some of the seniors that this is the first meal they've had outside their home with anyone for years because their partner passed away or things like that. So it's just a really exciting time for our community and a place that people gather, like one of our goals is. We also served summer meals. We're continuing to serve those until the start of school. So anyone 18 and younger can get a free meal at the library, and that has usually it is around 15 to 20 kids every day. We have an amazing volunteer corps that we work with, partnering with Horizons, serving those meals. And this summer, we also had help from some AmeriCorps Vista members, and they were also helping serve those meals as well. And the Vista members, this was one of kind of the risks that we took, and we jumped on board with a partnership with United Way and AmeriCorps, which is through Campus Compact, Iowa Campus Compact. They provided the AmeriCorps Vistas. So we basically had 2 extra full-time staff for the summer. So they helped do outreach for the summer, which we've never been able to do before just because we're so busy in-house. But they were able to do 29 outreach visits to different daycares and day camps in the community, a lot of them weekly, and they served at least 230 kids who might not be able to come to the library during the summer just because of schedules and things like that. So they were reaching out to the community, which is really exciting. The Vistas also were able to provide service in-house. They planned some programs for us. They helped serve the meals, like I said, and they also just were friendly faces at the desk, helping serve our community in all kinds of different ways. Speaking of outreach, we started last year a program called Grow on the Go, which is outreach to all the daycares and preschools in our community. Our goal is to get to all of them, but right now we're serving 7. Last year we were serving 5, but now we have 2 more on the list. So we go at least once a month to these schools, and we provide a bin of books and developmentally appropriate toys and activities and things like that for the kids. And we also provide a story time. We talk about the library. We'll sign kids up for cards. There's lots of fun interactions that happen there, and the kids get really excited because they'll come into the library and be like, oh, I know you came to my school, and it's very, very exciting. And it's just a way to touch the community that might not be able to come into the library as frequently. They're not our regular storytime patrons that can come to us, so we're going to them. And we served last year around 180 to 220 kids every month through that program. We are also working on, this is a really recent development, we're working with the Iowa Professional Society on the Abuse of Children. They are hoping to get every organization they can in Lynn County to adopt a no-hit zones. And we are the actual first organization in Lynn County to become a no-hit zone. So we just kind of signed off on that. We got training this past week on what it means to be a no-hit zone, and we're offering staff training kind of gradually as we learn what that really means. We're putting up posters, and we're going to be doing some more training on that, but just becoming a safe place for people to come to the library and offering support for parents, for caregivers, for anyone who is in a stressful situation that it could come up that they want to resort to violence, offering another alternative, and how do we have those conversations. So that's really, really been exciting. We also, as Madeline was mentioning, we want our patrons to get materials they want whenever they need them and whenever they want them. And so we're offering several streaming services. And we are the first library in the state to offer Canopy and Hoopla as streaming services. They have different service models, but they're both very exciting. There's streaming movies, shows. You can get books and audiobooks through Hoopla, and they're just very, very exciting resource for people that they can use from the comfort of their own home. And a lot of them are also able to be shown. So Canopy has a license that anyone who uses it can show it publicly. So like schools can use they have a lot of educational materials, so they can use those without having to pay any fees or anything like that. So that's just a really exciting opportunity for our community. We're also working on another aspect of our strategic plan is aligning more with the city branding. So we're trying to kind of streamline all of our marketing materials and promotion materials internally and externally, and kind of get the communication up to par with everything else going on with the city as well. So that's been exciting. We also just started sending out library cards as like part of a welcome packet to any new residents in Marion, and I just had someone come in with a card saying, hey, how do I activate this? And so I helped her sign up for a new library card, which was very exciting. So that's just a fun way to promote the library and to say, hey, welcome to Marion. Look at all of these resources that you already have just by living in this amazing community. So that's been really great. Another way we're promoting our cards is we reached out to all of the school districts in the area to put the library card on their school supply list. And Marion Independent and St. Joe's both put the card on there, and Linmar is considering it. So So we're excited for the possibilities for all the kids. I just had some kids coming in saying, hey, this was on our list. We have to check it off. So that was really exciting. Yeah, I think that's all the things I wanted to highlight. But if anyone else has questions, we'd love to answer them. So.
Quick one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I love all of the positive programming you have from all of the age ranges. The no-hit zone, is that like a prequel to bullying, if you will?
Kind of. It's all ages. So I can show you, I have a little poster with me. But their policy is basically no adult shall hit another adult, no adult shall hit a child, no child shall hit an adult, and no child shall hit another child. So it's all across all ages. So just never resorting to using physical violence in any shape or form.
No, I think it's great. I just thought it was intended for the younger, so I liked that we were also hitting
and
them.
we're trying to get some programming around it. So we're working with the Parent Education Consortium. We're going to do some parenting classes in the fall. We're also hoping to, during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, to bring in some help maybe from the police department or other sources about domestic abuse and things like that. Elder abuse is also an issue, and we work closely with the Heritage Center on Aging, and so we're looking into ways we can build awareness around that as well. So
our partnership with the Iowa State University Parent Education Consortium is one of my absolute favorites. When we say things like parenting classes, there can be a negative connotation. Let me tell you what you're doing wrong. But these are more so a way for communities to celebrate what is happening. The curriculum is designed by an accredited board. We survey our parents and users to see what questions they have that they would like to discuss in a peer group. And there is a meal catered in that's grant funded from Hy-Vee. So the parents, the only requirement is you need a kiddo in your home ages 5 and under. If you have a child who's say 8, you're still welcome to come enjoy the meal as a family. And then there is childcare provided on site to try to remove as many barriers as possible. When we launched this partnership, was it in 2016? We broke their record for the amount of attendees, so we have just consistently rolling through. And so we are gearing specifically a new, another 1, 2, 3 Magic No Discipline program coming up to provide those alternatives. A lot of the intervention training we receive for No Hit Zone is for things that can be a little more touchy, such as no spanking and what I call play fighting. You can't tell me not to hit her, she's my sister, versus, no, it looks like I hit her, but we're just playing. So this way we can use that same language regardless of if it's a scuffle of 11-year-old boys or a more serious situation as well.
And great resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Well, just listening to you both talk is an indication of why our library is so successful. You're so enthusiastic about your jobs and what you're doing, and you really see it as a service to the community, not just your job. And I think that's indicative of across the board of our city staff, and you guys are right there at the top of why Marion is such a great place to live. The breadth of the services that you offer, the variety of demographics and age groups, and you think about everyone in the community, and we hear, when we sit at the library on Saturdays, we hear so many times from people who are not from Marion that they come to our library because of the service, because of the helpful people. They love the library, and I think that's why we have one of the busiest libraries in the state. And whoever says that libraries are on their way out has not visited the Marion Library or checked out the immense and vital role that they play in this community. So thank you for everything you're doing. Really proud of you.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more presentation. We're proud of you too, Chief.
The purpose of breaking these up is so I don't keep council too long, just to take what's probably going to end up being an 8-hour presentation, breaking it down to 15-minute increments. That way we can grasp on it little bites at a time. So how's that? Is that okay?
Good.
Yes. Okay. So I've got some executive staff here again with me tonight. Thank you for coming and showing your support, executive staff. I know you got my back. So the timeline for the mayor, I know you weren't here last time, Renee. I think you were on other business. So just to review the timeline for the strategic plan overview. Today's August 21st. I'm going to go over Goal 1 to council, and in the coming 6 weeks, various members across the police department will come to highlight specific goals that they're going to be championing moving forward. The 6 strategic goals, just as a reminder to council. Goal 1 is to use technology, data analysis, research, and strategies to appropriately staff the agency to respond, investigate, and prevent crime. Goal 2 was that personnel are highly trained, engaged, and committed to ethical service. Goal 3, that the Marion Police Department engages in community and business partnerships. Goal 4 is that city departments work together to advance public safety and work fiscally responsible. Goal 5 is to develop collaborative partnerships with area criminal justice agencies. And Goal 6 is to establish a Marion Public Safety Communications Center. So Goal 1, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Goal 1 is to use technology, data analysis, research, and strategies to appropriately staff the agency to respond, investigate, and prevent crime. Those strategies are use data to help derive decisions, research the costs of a new CAD RMS system, review our current units to determine relevance to our mission, increase patrol supervision and staffing levels, and establish working groups to transfer animal control duties away from the police department. So Goal 1, Strategy 1, use data to help derive decisions. Social network analysis is a very advanced technique that the Marion Police Department is quickly becoming a nationally recognized law enforcement agency for. We've already done things with social network analysis that have never been done in the United States, and we're progressing a possible partnership with CNA to possibly drive an opioid reduction project here in Marion. I'll brief the council more on that in the coming weeks, but that's a pretty big deal. Sunshine isn't here tonight, but Sunshine is always shining out at the police department because we stole her from Cedar Rapids, and she's absolutely incredible. And the GIS mapping capacity that we have out there and the talent that we brought to this agency is going to factor in heavily to the future of your police department. And if I come here saying I need to keep her, I need X and Y, please give me X and Y because she's amazing. DDAX, data-driven analytical crime and traffic safety. There's an evidence-based strategy that we're going to implement that ties our traffic enforcement not only to our high traffic crash locations, but we'll also tie it to our GIS and SNA hotspots to identify crime locations where we can tie our traffic enforcement to also reduce crime in the process. And then there's a lot of opportunities at our department to identify emerging and underutilized technology platforms to inform and direct our strategies. Goal 1, Strategy 2, CAD and RMS. We're currently using shieldware technology. The system's been in place for 24 years. Think about a piece of technology that you used in 1994 that you still have on your plate today. Doesn't exist. I mean, the cell phones that we have now have more computing capacity than the lunar mission did in 1969, and that's a fact. So we're still using our reporting mechanisms, our dispatch mechanisms. They're very old. Now, we've had software updates and things like that, and the state of Iowa is considering a new technology. There's different systems out there, but we have to be very methodical how we move into the future with our dispatch and our reporting systems, because that goes down to our core efficiencies. How much time is our officer spending writing reports? How are the systems communicating with each other? How do we pull data out of those reports for public safety, for intelligence analysis? There's so many opportunities here for us to improve, but I'll caution, it's extremely expensive. And when we pick a new one, when the state of Iowa possibly mandates a new one for us, they may even fund it. So I want to keep our ear to the ground, identify what it looks like, and make good recommendations over the 5 years, because what we pick in CAD and RMS is the driver for the agency. As you can see, the last one was 24 years. Let's see. Goal 1, Strategy 3. And we've already done a lot of this, but we have to continue to do this. Review our current units to determine relevance to our mission. We just made a change in our computer forensics deployment. We had a full-time detective that was working on computer forensics. We looked at our mission statement, and we determined at this point in time that that person would be best served to go back to patrol and answer calls. We're refocusing what that unit does for us, how much money we're going to invest in that, to make sure as we move forward in this century that we have good access to computer forensics. We have people that are trained and cross-trained, but the days of us bringing in computer towers and analyzing them and digging through them, they just don't exist anymore. Everything's on a smartphone, and it's simplifying, but we do need to have that type of technology, but we're definitely in a state of transition there. The department receives grant money every year for the Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau. It's grant money that officers can use to conduct proactive traffic enforcement. We want to rebrand this and tie this grant to our DDAC strategy that I described a minute ago. What are our high accident locations? What are our crime spots? Take that grant that's public safety for traffic enforcement, but tie it to data, tie it to intelligence. Support services. We've already begun to do this, but the support services division of the Marion Police Department, as it was even a year ago, does not exist anymore. And actually in the back of the room, we're outrolling it in the next couple weeks. You now have an operations sergeant and a professional standards sergeant that are sitting in the back of the room right now. Their job descriptions are being finalized. Took them from existing staff, but prioritizing what they do. The operations sergeant is going to be a core component to support the efficiency and operation of the Patrol Bureau, while the professional standards sergeant will concentrate on our policies, procedures, our internal investigations, our morals, our effort to get CLIA certified. And we're going to start that sooner rather than later, and that's a big step for a police department, but we're definitely going to start to train down that track. The records office. I mean, I've got a staffing report that I'll talk about. I'm not going to talk too much about staffing, but I've got a historical staffing summary that goes back to 1990 on the Marion Police Department. We have the same amount of record staff, people that are collecting data, pushing data, that we did 28 years ago. One person. Okay? And you know how much paper and how much stuff we're doing out there. Improve customer service. When people come into the PD, that's huge. And who is doing that now? Who is the face of the department right now? It's our dispatchers. And I know I talk about that a lot. And that's going to come to end really, really soon, because not only are what they doing the most critical function of fire and police together, but when they're the face of the department, when they're the ones that are delivering public safety, in the back of their mind, the only thing that they're thinking about is, I've got to get back to the console to answer the 911 call, or to dispatch, or to pay attention to the radio. And it's not where we want to be in Marion, and I've got a plan to fix it. Our K-9 units, our SWAT teams, accident investigators, bomb and arson. How are we training them? How are we utilizing them? How are we working with other agencies to share resources? All come into play in Strategy 3. Goal 1, Strategy 4, increase patrol supervision and staffing levels. This is a big one. It really is. And the requests that I'll have over the next 5 years are outlined in charts in the strategic plan under Goal 1 and Goal 6. And what I accomplish in the next 5 years with this strategic asks of personnel is I keep our current shift minimums, but I remove the supervisor from those shift minimums. Okay, so where that supervisor doesn't count as that body in the field. And that will be a very, very big step for us. When my supervisors are expected to answer the same call for service workload that the officers are, what are they not doing? They're not supervising. They're not mentoring. They're not giving me quality control on what my officers are doing, how they're interacting with the public, and providing me feedback on what are we doing to accomplish the goals of the department. So, civilian property and evidence technician, this is going to be an ask in 2019. I've got an officer that I pay really good money with benefits. I think it's almost $95,000 a year, and he does an amazing job. That's not it. He's very talented, but his role is to receive property from officers or people that drop things off the street, citizens that bring things in that need to go into evidence, into inventory, stack it on a shelf, log it in a computer, check it out for court, or destroy it. I don't need a gun. I don't need a vest. I don't need 6 months of academy training to do that. So I want to civilianize that sooner rather than later, and there's a +1 in the street for patrol. The addition of a patrol captain in 2021 will be big. As you know, I took the lieutenants, and I put the lieutenants each on one shift in order to create consistency among the Patrol Bureau. I want those 3 lieutenants in a few years to report to one commander that creates and makes sure there's consistency among the shifts for the way we're deployed. In 2022, 2023, with the elimination of the computer forensics detective at the time, I have 5 detectives. One investigation, or actually one of the investigations that we have going this year can tie up my entire bureau for weeks. Okay, and that's all 5 of them working on something. In the coming years, I do want to enhance the capacity of the Investigations Bureau. They are working at full capacity right now, but they have come to me and they'll let them know we got to fix patrol first. We've got to get our patrol, because patrol's the backbone of any department. And then looking way down the road, to talk about our peak times of deployments. It's usually 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's where we're at. At some point, I don't want to create another shift. I don't want to, some type of power shift might be a possibility. And I think I'd want to research that in 3 more years, see where we're at with what we do in the first 3 years of the plan, and then possibly put something in place where the officers are working during those peak hours of the day. The receptionist and support staff, to tier them in over the next few years, I want to take away the responsibilities, and I hit on this earlier, of the 911 operators being the face and the customer service portion of the police department. That will come in the part of part-time employees that are sitting at the front with customer service in mind. We did a study over the last 6 months on the amount of people when they come into the police department for service. Your peak time is from 8 a.m. to about 1 p.m., but then from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. for a 6-month period, I think I had 6 people come in the station. So that just tells me of when I need to have people there, when I need to have the customer service, and when I can just have a telephone in there. It picks up and rings the emergency line or the non-emergency line when somebody's in the lobby, and we'll get somebody there to help them. The communications center staffing is a very, very high priority for me. I know I've been over that a lot with council. If there's something that, as your chief, that I lose sleep at night about, and it's not that we don't have talented, amazing people in there, I assure you we do, it's our communications center. Just know that's up on the top of my mind, and I've segregated that entire plan into Goal 6, which you'll hear about in 5 weeks. And I don't want to speak for the chief, but I think she's standing right here, right next to me right now. I think she would say the exact same thing. You got to remember, we're getting ready to add a fire station. We're going to add another one after that. With that, what they're going to want tiered response dispatch, where we don't ring every station in the middle of the night. And I'll be honest with you, dispatching for a fire department and dispatching for a police department, 2 different animals with the things that the dispatchers need to learn, and things that they ask for are not the same things that we ask for. I was on a call in Kansas City as the division commander where 2 firefighters were killed. And they were killed because they didn't hear the call come out from communications for the collapse zone had been established, where they need to get certain distance out from the scene. And so it comes down to communication and processes. And so, yeah, that's a big one for me. I'll pass this out. And this Deputy Chief Slagle's been keeping this forever. Okay. And it's just a reference point of where we've been at for officers. It compares it to the population of Iowa. It compares it to the Bureau of Justice Statistics recommended staffing levels. But I would encourage you to look at what the recommended ratios are from the state and the peer cities in Iowa, but then compare it to the report that I had done for the University of Cincinnati. The University of Cincinnati report is much less than what the Iowas recommend. There's one report in here that says, in just comparing it, if you were to compare the Iowa ratio right now, we would have 67 officers. Okay, and the University of Cincinnati report recommends that we get to about 56, which I'm more in line with that. So, Goal 1, Strategy 5, and this is a pretty easy one for me to sell. To establish a working group just to discuss what it looks like to take animal control responsibilities away from police officers. We've done a lot in the last year to kind of revamp the public's expectations of what we do with animal control. We literally had people in this community that were trying to catch feral cats and call us, so we would come and get them. And we're not responding to certain types of calls if there's no threat to the public in regard to animal control. And they would call and, I just saw a cat run through my yard. Can you come get it? I'm not even being funny. It really has happened. We have no training in animal control. Maybe that's something I should work on how we, respond to these types of calls. The officers get bit a lot of times, but all we have is a little hook that wrap around their neck, try to drag it over to the police car, and then take it to a cage in the station where it sits till the next day when Cedar Rapids Animal Control shows up. It's bad PR for a police department. As you guys can see, we got worldwide exposure for the death of a deer here in Marion. State of Iowa issues 300,000 deer permits every year. They kill 110,000 deer in the state, but we shoot one that's obviously distressed in a parking lot, and we get death threats. And let's just the soft side of me coming out. The animals are going to get better care. If we were to look at some type of model where there's a professional animal control specialist, they go to an animal care facility instead of the basement of the police headquarters, where we could better serve the animals and the population at large. We're a city of 41,000 people now, and it's time we look at that. In the past 2.5 years, we've responded to almost 2,300 calls for service in regards to animal calls. I know what I want my officers doing, and that's keeping Marion safe, and not responding to a barking dog and different types of calls like that. Should be handled by civilian personnel. And this is another chart that I wanted to show everybody when the peak call for service times are for animal-related calls. It's when we're the most busiest too. It's right when we're out there at the peak of the day when we're trying to handle the safety of the citizens of Marion. So in summary, Goal 1 creates a stable platform to enhance supervision and build capacity for improved customer service and operational efficiency. That's Goal 1 of 6. And I'd be glad to pass out the historical document. If you have any questions you want to about it, we'd be glad to answer email questions about it. And like I said, I'm not pressing you for staff today. That's not it. The time and place for that is with the city manager. This is just to educate you on what my asks are. That way we don't go into the budget process, and I try to do an 8-hour presentation for you.
Right.
I have something.
Questions? Yeah.
Chief, you might explain how it sounds easy to go out and hire new police officers. Having sat on the Civil Service Commission for 20 years, and I look back here, and these guys probably had 100 when they tested to become policemen in the city of Marion. And I understand the last testing we had 31 or thereabouts. You had a list of 15, of which you eliminated 10, I think, with background.
I'm already done. I've picked my 2.
So basically you don't have a hireable, which civil service now has to go back and we need to figure out how we can rekindle the desire in these folks to be a police officer. And I don't know how we do that, but I think we do it with our staff, talking to people and explaining to them, because it's very difficult anymore.
Two responses to your questions about that. It's significant. If you were to say, I'm going to let you hire 3 officers tomorrow, that means they hit the street ready to function in about a year. One of our last recruit didn't make it off break-in, and so I'm behind again. So I'm 6 more months out because I got to find somebody, I got to send them in the academy, I got to put them through a 3-month FTO process. So what's really 5 years, it's really 8 by the time I get them through the academy. And then with our budget, and we talk about retirements coming up, we're on a bubble here in the next 5 years, where there's a lot of individuals that are going to be retiring, people that will be phasing out of their great careers in Marion, but that's also something I'm going to have to factor in hiring in civil service. I have a huge gap right now in female and minority recruiting. Every agency in the United States is having a tough time with this. We're fighting for the same people. I need to figure out a way to get proactive with it. I need to get individuals aspiring to get through my chain of command, to have better representation. And I'm not there right now, but we're going to try to work on it. And like you said, I had a list of around 15 people, and I think we actually certified 20, but I've got my 2, and I'm going to start over now. just through the attrition, when you do the follow-ups after they pass the civil service and get certified, and it's just not a fit for us. So,
Other questions for Chief?
I have a couple of things. Let me see what I wrote. A question about the animal control. Is that something you would want to keep within the department but have someone specialized, or something you would want to defer to like the Lane County Animal Controller? I have no idea.
no, our current contract is with Cedar Rapids. I don't know if they would be willing to entertain a more robust contract with them to respond to our calls, or whether we hire a animal control specialist for the city of Marion, but then utilize the Cedar Rapids facilities. I don't know what that looks like, but the building the working group to look at those issues and give the city manager's office and the council options of things to consider would be the goal of that project.
Okay. And then I wanted to just mention the recent press on your announcing that you would be going through this. I appreciate you putting it out there, it being public. I know that we've received at least one email in support of your plan from just Joe Q citizens out there, and I think that that's always helpful. I have not heard anything negative, so I appreciate your boldness of putting it out there. Just the data, the numbers are the numbers. And then to Paul's thing real quick, I think it's a very difficult time for police officers with the political climate, et cetera, and I appreciate all of the new programming that you're bringing to light and deploying the officers in the schools, on career fairs, knocking on businesses' doors, because I think it's kids who see this as a profession and a role model, the role models you're putting out into the community. I think you're creating a lot more opportunity for the police to interact with people, not just in negative situations that you have to respond to. So I appreciate that and hope that it continues to, catch on and little kids. When I was a little kid, everybody wanted to either be a police officer or a firefighter or a veterinarian. I don't know what most little kids would say.
Well, my son wants to be a
now,
fireman. I don't know what happened to him.
So anyway, thank you for
Thank
that.
you, Councilwoman. I sure appreciate it.
Other comments or questions?
I just want to say I want to thank you again. I know there's a lot of work put into this, and this is something that's, I would like to continue to support as we move forward. It is those things, we're dealing with, current affairs, current events. We got to deal with nutrition. We got to deal with retirements. We know things are coming forward. It's a constant looking forward. And sometimes we forget to look, at our feet today to see where we're at, but we got to be looking at those retirements. We got to be looking at, some of these things that are coming down. We talk about some of the services that we're providing. I'm assuming that we got 2080 agreements with, loaning our detectives out for the, our neighboring communities. Are any of those collectible back as far as what we're taking in as far as payroll dollars that are going towards that? I'm assuming there's agreements there, but it really affects our budget and bottom lines. Can you just
Sure.
quickly give me just a quick couple sentences
the
on
only
that?
one that we have that's away from the PD a majority of the time, but he's part of a regional task force, is our DEA partnership. And that helps us in so many ways because we don't have enough personnel to stand up a narcotics unit. So it allows us to be a part of a collaborative effort across the Cedar Rapids Metro to leverage federal asset forfeiture dollars that come back through that type of program, and to keep our pulse on the narcotics activity that's occurring in the Metro. But absent us helping other jurisdictions, say with an accident, we're really home a lot. We don't do too much in the other communities. And one minor adjustment that I've made just in the last couple months is other jurisdictions used to open up the Marion Police Department to work off duty in other jurisdictions, like for festivals in Cedar Rapids. I eliminated that practice because if I get somebody hurt, working a Nubo festival, was that in the best interest of the city of Marion? And I think the answer was no. And I think the only exception I've made to that was the Iowa University football games, because they have a communications center. It's a well-run operation with there's emergency operation procedures in place, and I think it does serve the greater good. So.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
we try to keep them home, Councilman, and that's a big. We've got enough to handle here, and we're not loaning them out at all right now.
I just
unless
did
it's an
a
emergency.
quick search, and our sister city is a population that's sitting at 131, and we're at 40. I think a lot of us can remember the day when that city just hit 100,000. So when I look at the ratios as to operating numbers, we have done an extremely good job of doing what we do on the payroll dollars that we currently use. And as we're expanding some of these services, I know that it's taking more time, to get out of the cars, to go into these businesses, to shake the hands and make, the acquaintances. That does take time. We understand that. And I'll be very excited myself to follow this as you go through this process and support it, and look forward to the additional information coming forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. And I don't want to spoil the thunder because it's going to come out in the next week, but I have to tell you, because Sergeant Harwig's back there. In the past 100 days, your Marion Police Department contacted 835 Marion businesses in person. I didn't think there was more than 300-400 businesses when I started this. So it's going to be,
That's good to know.
spoil it too much
We've been
more.
wondering what that number is, so.
That might be the most accurate count.
Thanks for that data.
I don't even think we got them all, y'all. I really don't. I
Probably not.
really don't. It was a lot of fun, and they did a really good job. And I plan on recognizing some of the individuals in front of council that really knocked it out of the park for us. And I'm really looking forward to promoting that guy back there on Thursday. So thank y'all for listening to me.
I think one of the most important roles that we have as a city council is, and the most difficult roles, is to look forward into the future and try to plan for 10 and 15 and 20 years down the road, and make sure that the city's set up for continued success. And I appreciate what you're trying to do, and using the methodical way of helping us to be able to make those decisions in an educated way, informing us and giving us the right information we need to make good, sound decisions. And so I really appreciate the work you've been doing, and the approach that you're taking to help us make good decisions in such an important topic. So thank you.
Our honor, Mayor. Thank you.
And I think it's very telling that so many of your staff are here, because it obviously shows that this is an important topic to them. So
Thank you.
thank you all for being here. Yep.
Down right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to be here for, that's right. Okay. So under this new agenda, the council discussion is now going to take place on Tuesday instead of Thursday. Is that what I'm reading, or?
If you had concerns to bring up on Tuesday, you could, in addition to Thursdays.
So just questions for staff, things like that, that could happen at this time on the Tuesday meetings. Okay, so this is something new we're adding to the agenda. Council discussion time. Any questions for the staff?
Awesome. We get to start at this end? Okay.
Please.
I would like just, could somebody educate me a little bit as we go through this new agenda? I know it's been looked at. Obviously, the rest of us council members didn't get to see this before it went to the agreeance that this is the way we're going to go. So I'm assuming this gives us a chance to get a little bit of feedback. When we receive these items, and this is not a change from now but from the previous, but when they're labeled on the top, I'm assuming they should follow the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Can somebody clarify that for me? I mean, I know this seems like layman's terms, but as I'm trying to rifle through paperwork, and I apologize, Rachel, because I did find the city manager's deal. It was stuck to another page here. For example, it's labeled 2G1. Now, this one happens to follow, I believe, a 2G1. If I look at 2G1, there it is.
So right now, they're matching what was used to be the council packets, which were split by department. So
Okay.
that's how I sent out this one. If you wanted to split or put in order of the agenda, I can do that. I would
But
just need
that's okay. I was
instructions.
just looking for a little bit of an explanation, because I see these come in like 3F10. Some of them match and some of them don't.
So 1 is the consent agenda,
Okay.
2 is the consent agenda with mayor's abstention, and 3 is the regular portion.
Okay.
But then they're grouped by department. So if you'd rather they just go in the order as in the agenda, I can do that.
Is it a lot of extra work for you to put them in the order of the agenda? Does that make sense?
Well, it's more work for the staff too, because you'd have to split your reports.
They currently are. They currently did split the reports, so.
Yeah.
So like the engineering memo that I give you has all the items.
Yeah.
And then if it's something that's an attachment that is one of those three, then it has a different label on it. But my memo has all the items together.
Okay.
However you prefer to receive
the
it, I
preference?
will provide that.
I'm just trying to look, again, I'm trying to look forward here.
What's easiest so you can find something quickly?
I think, in my opinion, it would be is to go to the agenda. I appreciate well, right now, currently, we have the abstentions, obviously, of the mayor, but will the future warrant having that? Does the past show proof that this is how we want that to go forward for the mayor's abstention? Does that make sense?
Well, that's the biggest change I saw, is taking all of those and grouping them together versus having them sprinkled throughout.
Right.
Is that...
But that creates a third
Other than
entity
that,
for the agenda. That's just what I'm kind of curious.
We split between consent and agenda, so it's easier for the public to see what will be passed as a whole versus talked about
Right, and I
separately.
understand that.
I think it's with Mayor Abu Asli, we had this certain section for his abstention.
Gotcha, okay. And I'm not asking for it to be changed, I'm just trying to understand how this is.
I'm open to suggestions, so.
It's a very busy roadmap, and
Yeah.
it's a little difficult to follow, so I just had a comment about that, so I'm not sure what everyone else's thoughts are, but I think with that, I think that's all I had anyway for today.
I would ask with the agenda so I get it electronically. I think everyone else is getting paper. So I still get everything electronically, and I would still like to see each individual thing, like in planning, or whatever it's called now.
By department?
Yeah, community development, its own individual tab for me to click on or file. Otherwise, if it's on page 97, I'm scrolling on the iPad to get to page 97, and half the time the iPad messes up. So if we could still break them down individually, that would be fantastic. I don't think I have anything else.
So it's still new, but I like that we're adding not only a second comment section for now, but more importantly, an additional public comment section at the beginning of the meeting on Thursdays.
Yeah, on Thursdays, we'll have a section for public comment on the consent calendar items.
Yep. So we'll see how that works out, but I'm curious for it and grateful that we're, again, have another opportunity for people to weigh in ahead of a public hearing or at the end of our meetings. And the only other thing I wanted to point out was to thank Mike and Darren for all of their communications and history, et cetera, on two particular issues of which I've been receiving a lot of email, and that is Lucor Road and the Brookside Indian Creek. It's been raining a lot, so the email's been really busy. Thank you for the backup, and that's all I have.
I've got a request. This will go to Amanda, or at least finance. So we got we received the 6/30/18 financial, which is the year-to-date, year-end report. And there are, again, I was not involved in that budget from a year ago, but there's a lot of line items where budget to actual have significant variances, or differences, I'll call them, instead of calling it a variance. So what I'd like to ask for, at least on the major ones, could be a line item, say where the variance is a $500,000 or more, is what was the difference, what was in the budget that was not in the actual, what caused it to be so much different. And I know I probably off the top of my head I can guess at some of them, but I don't like guessing. I like to kind of know what those were, what changed. I'm not looking for explanations on every one of them, but kind of knowing, because sometimes having those differences in that budget starts affecting the next year's budget.
Yeah, we can put something together for you. I'd have to check with the finance manager. It probably won't be for the Thursday meeting, but
That's fine.
we can email it
I
out
didn't
to
expect
council.
that.
Yep.
I'm not looking for, again, if I said a dollar number of $500,000, that would catch what I would say would be all the really, really major ones on why, because if you look at the total difference, and a lot of that is gonna come about in probably about 6 different accounts.
Yep, it's no problem to
So-
put a variance report
Yeah,
together for you.
okay, thanks.
Paul?
I'm going to reserve my 3 minutes for Thursday night.
All right.
Only 3 this week.
Now, that goes along with my 10. And Will, I don't get that stuff on my computer.
What is that?
It's the 80s. They're calling.
I don't even know what that is.
Reflector.
I have a question, Amanda. Was mentioned that we're interviewing for budget manager. I'm assuming that person is going to be a CPA? Or that's one of the requirements?
No, that's not a necessary requirement for that position. So we have divided out budget from the finance function. So we do have CPA on staff in the finance function, and they will be working closely with the budget manager, but they will have their disparate tasks.
Okay.
I don't see where that position, as I understand it, would require
Okay.
a CPA designation. However, the city needs to be awfully darn careful in the future, especially with Wes retiring. Now, you only have one CPA on staff, and it's absolutely essential and mandatory that there be one at a higher level, like Leanne is. So,
Okay.
that is absolutely essential. I don't think the budget position, as I understand, is going to be needed, but obviously they need
I'd
to
been
have.
asked that question by someone, so I was curious.
No, and I believe we currently have 2 CPAs on staff,
We
with
have 2?
Leanne and Beth
Beth,
Little.
yeah.
Oh, and Beth. Okay. All right.
Will we have a future payroll? Will
Beth-
Beth's position be replaced with another CPA?
Beth is the payroll function right now, and so we have not yet refigured what that looks like, but I would anticipate that, yes, that would be replaced with a CPA.
Yeah, okay. Is that a requirement for that position to be a CPA?
I
in that
can't,
one?
I don't know enough about that right now, and we are
I'd be
making.
surprised, to
We
be
are
quite
making a lot
honest.
of improvements.
Yeah,
We will be
okay.
anticipating a lot of improvements in the area of payroll automation in the next couple of years, and
Yeah.
so the job will change a bit.
Yeah, I'm a CPA, that's probably not the area of specialty most CPAs are going to be looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
No other comments, questions? Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.